and the challenges and potentially support and help they've received along the way. I think that Art and Angie are just full of amazing advice and perspective. So I hope all of you will agree with me today. Please feel free to submit any questions or comments that you may have, and we'll see if we can answer them live. So thank you both for joining me today. I want to give you, Art and Angie, an opportunity to introduce yourselves and tell everyone a little bit about what your family looks like and a little bit about your life before ALS, if that's okay with you two.
Yeah, my name, of course, is Art Albright, and I've had ALS for a diagnosis for 3 years, and we have been married for almost 21 years. Wow. And have lived in Vancouver all that time.
So we're a family of 3, and our son is 14, and we became a family when he was 5. We were able to adopt him, and his name's Andre. He's an 8th grader. And before our ALS diagnosis, well, we were here living in Vancouver, and we were the typical family that was working, both of us, and Andre was in school, and just having a simple, enjoyable life together, and filled with many hopes and dreams. And we were very active in the outdoors, and enjoyed our family time together on the road, or even in our church. We really had enjoyed our involvement in church. So up until 2018, we were pretty average, having fun.
Yeah, and I think I've met your son once or twice, and he seems like a pretty awesome kid, although 14 now. I mean, that seems like a fun age. Art, can you tell me a little bit about what the journey was like to your ALS diagnosis?
Yeah. At first, I just thought I was getting older. I was 52, and I started noticing being a lot weaker, and my voice changed, and we went and saw a neurologist, and it was the first time hearing ALS. In fact, after the office visit, I went to work and Googled ALS and was kind of shocked with the diagnosis and life expectancy. And after the initial shock, I just gradually learned more and accepted the diagnosis and understood what was going on. I um, it's overwhelming at times, but a lot of times you're just patiently waiting for what's next. So it was a shock to me and to watch my family respond and other people really reached out and shared their concern and love. And
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Art. I would love to know a little bit more, speaking about people reaching out. You all spoke about how before your diagnosis, Art, you had a church community and some other communities. How have you seen maybe some of your friends and loved ones and your other communities support or step in some ways?
yeah, well, we had a get together at our house and shared with my family our journey and what we're doing and going through. And a lot offered their help. I have, had a close, a strong faith in Christ, and our church really has been a blessing and not just support and friendship, but a peace of mind with their prayers and love for us. And
Angie, if you feel comfortable sharing, have you felt supported as a caregiver? And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what it was like, kind of adapting or hearing about Art's diagnosis and stepping into the role as a caregiver.
Well, when I first heard the words ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, I didn't really understand what it was, and the doctor who did the preliminary diagnosis put his hand on my shoulder and said, "I'm sorry," and he walked away. And I was like, this is serious. I didn't realize how serious it was. And then we waited. We did a lot of waiting in between appointments and testing. And that was just very agonizing on its own. But when we went to the Providence ALS Center for the second opinion, Art was laying on the table having a test done with Drs. Olney and Goslin. And Dr. Goslin, they weren't saying very much, but she turned around and looked at me and asked, "Do you have a faith?" And I was kind of taken back by that question, thinking this is very, very, very serious. And I was thankful to be able to say, yes, I do. And I didn't realize how much I would need to rely on my faith in Christ through all of that as a wife.
Yeah.
So instantly I became a caregiver too. And I was just trying so hard to learn what ALS was while even coping through my own grief. It's very, very difficult. It's a lot of information, a lot of sad information. But it has been that faith that has given me a lot of strength and peace and comfort and hope in being able to stand on my own 2 feet and be able to help him navigate through the illness. It's been quite the journey. I think being very willing to accept help from others when they offer help, or not being afraid to ask for help. Like I have anxiety. What am I going to do? I need somebody to talk to who's out there. So it's important to just really surround yourself with people who are very loving and love life and can give you some encouragement and also hugs. And it really goes a long ways knowing that there's somebody there that you can count on. And the ALS Association has been there for questions, lots of questions, and also medical equipment needs. It's just been, during our hardship, a very good experience with the ALS Association and the ALS Center at Providence, because that support, it's just been phenomenal and very caring and compassionate. And I don't know if we could get through this without that, with all of that.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think sorry, I'm getting some feedback, but I think it's wonderful to hear that you have not only your faith, but it sounds like great friends and some family to rely on as well and to help. That's wonderful to hear. And of course, as a chapter, we're always here for you and for everyone else who's living with the disease. What advice, I think that segues nicely into my next question, which was what advice would you give to both caregivers for you, Angie, and then Art? Maybe we can start with you as far as what advice would you give to someone who's newly diagnosed with this disease?
Well, everyone's different, but for me, it was stepping back from work and focusing on my family and we listened to the doctors and we got connected with the ALS community and association, and Angie has found a bunch of support on Facebook groups of ALS, and it's a learning experience. I guess you need to be patient with yourself, and it's frustrating not to be able to do a lot of things you used to. But on the other side, you have time to read all those books and watch your shows, and YouTube has a bunch of history and music videos, and I discovered audiobooks, and it's been wonderful and enjoyable. Oh, and podcasts. I love podcasts.
So what have you read any or listened to any good books lately, Art, or have a favorite podcast or anything that you can recommend?
Yeah, Audible, and also our library has audio books. There's one called listened to so many, I'm drawing a blank. I listened to one about DARPA. It's the Pentagon's brain, and it's interesting and scary. And then there's a bunch of Jordan Peterson 12 Steps to Live, and what else? I just finished The Tipping Point.
Oh, I've read The Tipping Point. That's such a good book by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's so interesting. I love that one.
Right.
Well, it's great to hear. I mean, you're staying so intellectually stimulated, which I think is pretty awesome. What about you, Angie? What advice would you have for caregivers who are kind of entering this for maybe the first time or recently?
Well, I think, again, not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to accept help when it's offered, familiarizing yourself with the disease and the different stages, although it's hard to predict. Everyone is so different, but familiarizing yourself what could take place down the road. Before you know it, you might be there, and you'll actually know, gee, maybe this is what I need to do. I think I read up on this. And so that's very helpful. One thing that I did do, it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I was able to sit down with the wife of a man who had died of ALS just a few months earlier, and we had dinner together a couple of times, and just the most wonderful, caring person ever, who I need to look up and go and have dinner with again. But it was, her insight was so helpful for me. Even seeing her pain was very helpful for me in understanding that I'm not alone in this. There have been others who've gone before me. I think understanding your own limitations is so important, and taking time for self-care. And everyone will always say, oh, you need time for yourself. You need to go and have respite. It's very hard to do with all of the dynamics involved. But there will come a time when you know you've got to get in the car and go get a cup of coffee and sit in the parking lot for a while. And it's that self-care where you're nourishing your heart, going for a walk and nourishing your body and eating properly, keeping up your strength so that you can be strong for your loved one that has the ALS. There were a couple of books that I read, and I tend to pick up every now and then to reread. One was called Beautiful Battlefield by Bo Stern, and Calm My Anxious Heart by Linda Dillow. And both of those books have really helped me navigate through the ALS. One was specific on the ALS, The Beautiful Battlefields, and then the Calm My Anxious Heart has really helped me with just circumstance and being able to learn to let go of things that I have no control over. Those have been very helpful. Caregiving is, I thought, oh, I'm the caregiver, so he needs to do what I tell him to do, and it doesn't work out like that. And so I learned that I have to let him take the lead and let him tell me what he needs. I can't tell him what he needs. And so we're learning together as we move along. And I guess not really planning so far ahead in advance for things that you think you might need, because you're planning on the what ifs. I think it's better to just wait until you actually cross that line, where you may need to explore more what those needs are and how can you meet them, and then take it from there and start asking those questions.
I think that's great, Angie. Thank you so much for sharing some of your perspective, and the book suggestions are amazing as well. I can put those in the comments. I think that showed, I think having the dinner you had with a person who had experienced the disease before sounds like that was very impactful and kind of let you understand that you could handle this. So thank you so much for sharing that. Before we finish our little chat, I'd love to just bring up, in the past, you all have told me that your family motto is live for today, which I thought was such a great perspective to have. If you don't mind sharing a little bit about what that means for your family, if that's still something that you all take to heart, I think that would be a great way to end our conversation today.
Yeah, I realized early on that ALS is a progressive disease. So I realized today is the best day I'm gonna have. So live your day as best you can. And there's a verse, a psalm says, "This is the day the Lord has made, and I will rejoice in it." And, having that peace that, God's in control, and I may be struggling and having a hard time, but overall, I am not alone, and we all have struggles, and we all are sort of in the same boat, but I just love my family and love Angie and Andre and my friends, and my community, and it really gives me joy to have each day.
Well, thank you, Art. That was very well said. And it was so wonderful to be able to speak with both of you. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your story, Art and Angie, and hopefully providing maybe some advice and some peace for other people who are dealing with this disease as well. Yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I hope to see you all in person, maybe one of these days, Art and Angie, or at a support group or something like that. But yeah, thank you both for being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.